I think I'll delete the file rather than sending it to anyone. Madam Speaker, this is not only arrogant, it's criminal. We have been and continue to be the victims of outright lies and victims of an effort to focus our people on some kind of created and mythical scientific findings in order to scare and force our people into accepting draconian economic and regulatory policies. Senator James Inhofe of Oklahoma has called for an investigation in the Senate. There should be one in the House as well. Certain scientists receiving federal research grants are betraying the standards of their own profession. And yes, as I say, perhaps breaking the law. Countless numbers of our own people will suffer job losses and a decline in their standard of living if policies based on phony science, bad practices, the suppression of dissent, and outright lies are put in place and enforced. Before any action is taken by this Congress on cap and trade legislation, a full inquiry into this horrific abuse of science should be conducted. Wake up, America. They are trying to steal our freedom with lies and scare tactics. The good book says, the truth shall set you free. A caveat might be, and a lie can destroy your freedom. Perhaps the most perplexing of all, the global warming elite continues to herald their projections of man-made gloom and doom. They try to ignore the uproar that we've had over these emails. They ignore it, or they just change the subject. But this recent revelation of these emails seriously calls into question the basic science that these man-made global warming fanatics claim to be irrefutable. Well, let's look at this so-called irrefutable science that is the basis of the man-made global warming advocates. I, in fact, and I would make this very clear at this moment, I, in fact, would challenge any member of Congress to come here and debate me in the future on the science of this issue. Let me make that clear. This congressman, I am a senior member of the Science Committee. I challenge any of the advocates of man-made global warming to come here and debate me on the science of the issue. We shouldn't be dismissing our opposition's arguments any more than those scientists should have been. We are here to make policy and determine truth. Let's have an honest debate on this. First, let's talk about the so-called global warming cycle that's being used that's being used as an excuse or as a reason to look at human activity. So, the global warming cycle that's being caused by human activity, that's fundamental to this whole issue. We know that there have been weather and climate cycles throughout the long history of our planet. That's going back to prehistoric times. There has been cycle after cycle. One of the more recent of these cycles, the one ignored by Dr. Michael Mann, a cooling cycle that reduced temperatures on this planet for 500 years. That was between 1300 and about 1850. It's called the Little Ice Age. Amazingly, with a straight face, the global warming alarmists are using the low point in a 500-year cooling cycle as the baseline for determining if humankind is making the planet hotter at this time. Get that. We should declare an emergency because according to the alarmists, the Earth is a tiny bit, perhaps 1 degree warmer than it was at the bottom of a 500-year decline in temperature. Professor Mann can't wipe that out. He may try to delete it from his graphs and pretend it didn't happen, but this has been well documented. I remember there was a History Channel report going through the entire time of this mini ice age. Our current climate cycle is no different than the other numerous cycles that preceded it. It is dishonest to create hysteria by using the end of a cycle known as the Little Ice Age at a 500-year low in the Earth's temperatures as a baseline for apocalyptic claims that it is now getting extraordinarily warmer. On top of that, as people, the alarmists are claiming that it's our fault. It's the people's fault. It's us. We're the bad guys. We're the ones making the climate go up so much warmer than it normally is, and they're using as a baseline a 500-year low in the Earth's temperatures. So science question number one, science question challenge number one. Are man-made global warming advocates using an unrealistically and unreasonably cooler moment as the baseline for their analysis? All right. Question number two. What are the causes of the climate cycles that we've been talking about? The alarmist claims it's us. It's people. There were such cycles, of course, in the Earth's temperatures and climate, even before prehistoric man existed. If there were such cycles then, there must be some explanation other than human activity, because this is before humans existed. There must be some other explanation for the weather and temperature trends of those days. Well, then what is the other explanation? Many scientists believe cycles of climate have resulted from solar activity. After all, the sun is the biggest source of energy on our planet. The biggest. Everything else pales in comparison. Some of the revealed emails are specifically aimed at debunking this explanation by altering graphs and distorting data. The solar explanation is consistent with the fact that climate cycles on Earth parallel cycles taking place on other planetary bodies. That's right, like Mars or the moons of Jupiter, which have similar and simultaneous cycles to those on our Earth. But the global warming gang is intent on blaming us. In recent years, for example, human activity has been declared the culprit causing the melting of the Arctic ice cap. Who hasn't seen pictures of sad-looking polar bears stranded there on an ice floe, obviously a victim of man-made global warming? Such nonsense plays on our emotions, but it is presenting a distorted and dishonest picture of reality. Yes, until recently, the Arctic ice cap has been retreating. There is no doubt about that. But what about the ice caps on Mars? Yes, at the same time our Earth's ice cap was retreating, the ice cap on Mars was retreating, mirroring, paralleling what was going on Earth. Does that indicate that the cycle that we're talking about might have been caused by the sun and not by too many people driving SUVs or using modern technology? So maybe it's the sun that has affected the habitat of the polar bears, just as other cycles have affected the habitat of the plants and animals living in the time when those cycles kicked in. By the way, there's something to keep in mind when one hears for the umpteenth time that the polar bears are becoming extinct. The polar bears are not becoming extinct. In fact, the number of polar bears on this planet has dramatically expanded. There are 4 to 5 times the number of polar bears in the world today than there were in the 1960s. And I have spoken before groups of students, and they have been given this lie over and over again, and they are crestfallen to hear that maybe what they've been told are lies. Yes, lies. The extinction of the polar bear is about as real as the film footage of dissipating ice caps in former Vice President Gore's movie An Inconvenient Truth. That, too, was a scam. A special effect made of styrofoam was presented to us, especially to our impressionable children, to create the illusion that this was documenting the melting and breaking off of the Arctic ice cap. It was styrofoam. Styrofoam. It was phony.